Okay, hi, I'm Liam Barry. I'm a musician and a composer here in Winnipeg. And I wanted to talk about how to survive deadlines and make music really fast. Because when we're writing music for game jams, we have a lot to do, and we have not too much time to do it. So write music fast? What? So yeah, writing music for all media, games or short films or anything usually involves pretty strict deadlines. You know, we have to get things in, you know, we always like to have a bit more time, I think. And there's pretty strict, you know, lengths of music that we need to have, file sizes, all these kind of things we need to fit the music into. And we also need to leave enough time to deliver the music and get it into the game. So that doesn't actually leave us all that much time for the actual composing process. So I just wanted to get into kind of some tips and tricks for how to actually get the music done. And fortunately, composers have been working, well, fortunately for us, composers have been working with tight deadlines for centuries. Not so fortunately for them, but we get to benefit from their experience. So we're going to steal some of that benefit experience. Okay, so just basic workflow. Before starting any kind of music, it's good to know your parameters. You know, what are you writing for? What kind of thing are you writing it? You know, in the context of games, are you writing menu music or a giant boss battle thing or a village Final Fantasy Village track or something? How long does it need to be? Is it interactive? Is it looping? You know, all these kinds of things, just for basic, you know, what is this piece of music? How much time do you have to fill? And then get your space ready, you know, get your notepads, all that kind of stuff. Get your recording equipment out if you need to use it, if you're going to be recording. And cut it, you know, as many intermediate steps as you can. I remember when I first started doing stuff, I would sit down and I grab a whole bunch of sheet music and start writing out and figuring out my ideas. And that can be really useful for sketching things out and figuring out what you might be writing. But if you can just do that in your DAW and just start writing music, that would be my recommendation. That's what I do now. And know how much time you actually have. So again, if you have to write 5 tracks in 10 hours, you get 2 hours per track. On average, roughly. You know, that's kind of your metric. Okay, so in terms of actually deciding what the heck is this piece of music going to be, how am I going to do this? You know, if you're maybe have some experience writing music, you might be familiar with some of these things already. But for me, the biggest first thing is form. What shape does this music take? So people have been using form to dictate the shape of their music for a very long time. And it gets rid of a lot of ambiguities for us. So if I know if I'm in the 18th century and I'm writing an opera and I know I'm going to write an aria, I know that, you know, it's going to be an ABA form. I'm going to write a thing, then do something else, and then just repeat that first thing. And that saves a lot of decision making, which for me is usually where I get stalled out if I'm writing, is like, oh, how do I make the next decision? What should I actually do next? So having a clear form, it gets rid of that blank page syndrome, and it lets you really squeeze the lemon and get a lot of juice out of that one lemon. It lets you turn 10 bars into 20. For game music, it's also really important because it allows us to structure the loop. You know, all game music or most game music follow loops, and so by following a clear form or a fun and tricksy form, we can hide the loop and keep the music entertaining and engaging throughout. So I think the Super Mario Bros. Theme, the original one, is really great. Where it has this intro, a little second mini intro, the main theme that everyone knows, da 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 da. It does another thing, back to the intro 2, and then instead of C, and then instead of going right back to the A section, following these intros, it does something else, and then it does B, and then it loops. So it really subverts your expectations while also feeling really cohesive. So just like some common forms, as I said, ABA, you do a thing, you do something else, you do that first thing. Another standard form is like something like a rondo form, where you do A and then something else, and A and then you do something else, and then you do something else. Forms take many forms, and you can really make up a lot of things. Interactivity in form really helps extend it as well. So if I write an A and I add a couple layers to that, so okay, maybe if the player's like low on health or something, then this other layer fades in, that keeps the music a lot more interesting, and I've only written one A section. So it really extends the use of just that one little bit of music. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about is themes and motives. Dun 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 dun. So themes and motives are just these little melodic chunks, and you can stretch them and squish them and pull them apart and flip them upside down and put them all over the place. Themes are kind of longer motives. They're full little melodies, usually associated with something, and you can kind of do the similar thing with that. These are useful. Again, the hardest thing when composing is coming up with that first idea. So if you can take one thing and flip it around and squish it and do all sorts of stuff with it, you can turn 2 bars of music into 20 minutes, as long as you're having fun and inventively kind of playing around with it. So some things you can do with a theme, and I'll give some examples in a second. You can transpose it. You just move it up and down a scale or to different keys. You can take your melody and just put new chords under it. So let's say you have like a big, bold adventure theme. Now you got to write like a chill village theme. Just take that adventure theme, slow it down, put a bunch of new chords under it. There you go. You can make it really, really long. You can make it really, really short. You can play it backwards. You can play it upside down. You can break it into little chunks. So maybe you have that first little melody. Well, take the second half of that melody. That's your B theme now. So instead of the bigger structure, you have A, B, A. Well, the little chunk of that becomes the new melody for your B section. People have been doing that. There's actually a lot of Renaissance church music does that in a really cool way. They kind of just keep chaining, oh, I took the end bit of this because of my new theme, and the end bit of that because of my next new theme. So here's a real deep cut. This is Bach's invention number 1, which if you study piano long enough, everyone has to learn. So blue is kind of that first main theme. You can see how he bounces it around to all these different places. And then green is he kind of flips it upside down. Red is kind of breaking it apart into different things. And he gets an entire piece of little music just by bouncing this idea back and forth between hands and between keys. It saves him a lot of time. He doesn't have to make up a whole bunch of new stuff. Here's some themes from Link's Awakening. So let's say I wrote a cave theme for this cool little adventure game I'm making, and I think it's really neat, and I had to make a whole bunch of dungeon themes. Well, maybe I'll just take that cave theme and flip it upside down, or make it longer, or, with number 3 here, it turns into this accompaniment figure. So you can take this one little bit and stretch it into a huge amount of music. I really recommend listening through to all of those dungeon themes side by side. It's really wonderfully inventive. Okay, so the other thing is embrace cliche. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. So I really like to think of music as a linguistic medium. There are many musical languages. So like bluegrass is one, classical is another, jazz is a whole bunch. So don't be trying to invent your own conlang in a weekend. Instead, just rely on the cliches, the musical languages that you already speak. People have been doing this for centuries. There's this really cool thing, a fantastic book published in 2008 called Music in the Gallant Style, which delves into the ways composers use these basically musical skeleton building blocks called schemata, and would basically learn them in a whole bunch of different ways and elaborate upon them. And they were super conventional stock musical phrases that they could just basically Lego block together. And they would actually be able to write, a 2.5-hour opera in about 2 weeks. That's a pretty extreme case scenario, but they were able to do it just by being inventive and knowing these musical stock phrases so well that they're basically just improvising with their pencils, which is kind of where we want to get with our DAWs. There are cliches everywhere that we can steal and make ours and learn to play with. So instrumentation, playing techniques, texture, tempo, time signatures, accompaniment patterns, these all have meaning within the language that is film and game music. So stealing, make it yours. Don't borrow. Borrowing is plagiarizing. Stealing it is internalizing it enough that it's a genuine expression of yourself. So becoming familiar enough with it that you're using it for your own new music. So this is essentially using references, which artists do all the time, and we composers can do it too. If you're writing a big old castle theme, look up a bunch of things that are similar to that you'd like to evoke and reference, and not necessarily pull from, but be inspired by. So yeah, if I'm writing an old castle theme, I'm going to look up pictures from an exhibition and see what Mussorgsky wrote for. Look up a bunch of things that are similar to that you'd like to evoke and reference, and not necessarily pull from, but be inspired by. So yeah, if I'm writing an old castle theme, I'm going to look up pictures from an exhibition and see what Mussorgsky wrote for the old castle. I'm going to listen to the Hyrule Castle theme. I'm going to listen to a whole bunch of different stuff and just see what other people have done. What are the commonalities? What are the differences? And again, kind of prepare myself so that when I sit down at my DAW, I'm not inventing everything and thinking really hard, because sitting and thinking is not composing. We want to be sitting and composing. Thinking is good, but we want to do that beforehand, so that when we sit down, we're playing, we're making music, and we're in the flow, we're going. So that's kind of the main things that I want to talk about. So don't ever think, have fun, make good music. Don't jump way into the deep end and do things you haven't done before. Just have fun and carry on with what you're already familiar with. But I hope those are just some ways of thinking about how to make stuff that are helpful if you're new to making music, or even if you've been doing it for a while. It might be like, oh right, that's a good trick. I maybe forgot about that or something. Yeah, and happy jamming. Okay, thank you very much.